Hello guys, and welcome back to coding the Conway's Game of Life in Ruby. Let's continue with building our neighbors around cell method. First off, let us rename it again into live neighbors around cell, because we only care about a number of live neighbors around a particular cell. So let's run our rspec on the line 16, okay? Make sure that passes, and indeed it does. And then let's continue by building our method. So let's write a separate test for it and write something like it should detect a neighbor to the, let's use a geographical terminology, and let's say to the north, okay? So it should detect a neighbor to the north, and we are going to view this cell, okay, and make this cell alive, and then detect if this cell has one neighbor, okay. So let's write something like subject cell grid. Let's make this cell alive first. So subject cell grid. This cell is referenced by writing cell grid 0 and 1. Alive is going to be true. And let's make sure that that cell is indeed alive. So let's copy this, and then let's write something like should be, alive should be true. And let me make this a dot, and then run my tests again, but not on line 16, but on line 33, and we see that indeed it is alive. And let's make sure that the cell is dead beforehand. So cell grid 0 and 1 should be dead. And I've noticed that this test can be written better, so it should be alive, since we went through the trouble of writing the alive question mark method, and this is a typo. This should be dead. Okay, so let's run our test. It fails because we do not have dead question mark method. Easily fixable by going in our main file under our cell class and writing define dead question mark. And we can write this like this, since this is a simple method. So alive, and so yeah, you get the picture of what this is. Pretty simple. So right now it passes, and let's write this alive question mark method similarly to how we have just written the dead method. This is okay to write it in one line when methods are as simple as these two. Run our tests again, and we see that they are passing. Okay, so right now we're sure that this cell right up here is alive, and we should now reference this cell and see if its neighbors count is 1. So subject cell grid, so that is referenced by 1 and 1. Live neighbors around. So I'm sorry I began writing this line wrong, because I have to do something like subject live neighbors around cell, because of the way I have written this method. Live neighbors around cell. So again, we have to reference that cell, and that cell is referenced by subject cell grid cell grid 1 1. That references that cell right up there. Cell grid count dot should equal 1. Okay, so let's run our tests and see what we have so far. So we have a failure. because there is no method count for nil class, because this live neighbors around cell doesn't return anything, okay, and we have to build it. So live neighbors around cell, as we said, is going to return an array of cells, of live neighbors around a particular cell. So let us write something like live neighbours equals an empty array, and at the end of a method let us return that live neighbours. Okay, and let's first make sure, since we have written test for it, let's make sure that it detects a neighbor to the north. Okay, and let's write this. To go about this, to see how we are going to write this, let's jump real quick into our sketch and take it from there. So, since we are detecting a neighbors to the north, we can exclude cells which are in this first row up here, because neither of them has a neighbor to the north. Okay. So we can start off by writing something like if cell.y is greater than 0. Okay, because the y coordinate of these cells is 0, and since they do not have any neighbors to the north, we exclude them with this first line and say if a cell.y is greater than 0, which applies to this row, etc. Anyway, you get the point. So if it is, let us check if that neighbor is alive. So we're not sure if that neighbor is alive, so we're going to write something like candidate equals, okay, so candidate equals self, this self references the world object, self dot cell grid, okay, cell grid. So since we are watching it on the north, cell grid is going to have to correspond to the cell that y -1, okay, and this has to correspond to cell.x, okay, and we're going to add that candidate to the live neighbors array, live neighbors array. We're going to add a candidate if candidate alive, if that candidate is indeed alive. I'm not sure if I've written this correctly, so let me run my spec. I did. I'm awesome, you're awesome. Okay, so I have a small challenge for you now, since this is kinda tiresome to write for detecting a neighbor in each of the 8 directions. I am going to leave these as an exercise for you. Don't worry, we're not over with our tutorials. In the next video, I'm going to have the detection for neighbors in all 8 directions written, but if you wish, you can try to implement it yourself and not watch the next video before you implement it. If you are a cheating bastard, then you can just check out the next video and basically copy the code. So see you in the next video.